just play a pop song, singing to that highway song. Got a little naive smile, the kind that drives you out. Nothing like playing with fire, brings forward a life.
The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
1420 Sports Bar Podcast, Yankees Week in Review. Listen in throughout the baseball season as we will go over the week that was for the New York Yankees. We'll talk about what went right, what went wrong this week, this day in Yankees history, Yankees birthdays, and predictions of what the Bronx Bombers record will be at the end of the upcoming week. It's 1420 Yankees Week in Review, the Yankee Tavern North, brought to you by SeatGeek. So put on your pinstripes, grab a beer, and let's get in. All right, 1420 Yankee Week in Review brought to you by SeatGeek.com. The SeatGeek app. Use promo code 1420POD at SeatGeek.com today and save yourself $20 on your first purchase. Remember, we are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Go to BellyUpSports.com for all their great articles and other podcasts out there before. They'll make sure you listen to ours first. And make sure you listen to the Fan in the Van podcast. Joined today by the man, the myth, the legend, the fan in the van himself, Jim Plotner. Jimmy, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing a lot better than the Yankees are, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's been a bit of another mediocre week. They 5-5 in their last 10. Really didn't do anything at the trade deadline. We'll get into that in half a second. Anyways, the Yankees are playing mediocre baseball. Maybe they're just a mediocre team. What's the pulse out there out in the East Coast, out in Long Island way for this year's edition of the New York Yankees?
Mediocre, and they just fucking suck. That's really it's not only just Yankee baseball, it's Met baseball too. It's not good. It's just not a good pulse out here. It's not what we expected as far as the Yankees anyway. And you know, the nonsense that Cashman and Steinbrenner spew. This is a championship team. You know, everyone's heard us bash it to death all year long. Where is this championship caliber team that we're supposed to be seeing? It's on the back of a milk carton somewhere. Because I don't see it. I haven't seen it.
I had that for a little later in the show. We'll get into that right now. Is that like they must think that Yankee fans and baseball fans in general are stupid? Because there are people obviously who don't like the New York Yankees, and I get it, whatever. But when you have the higher ups talking about being a championship caliber team, do they not remember just last October when they got wiped up by the Houston Astros? It wasn't close, swept up 4 straight in the ALCS. They didn't really improve themselves. Yes, they went and got Rodon, who's been injured nonstop throughout this year. He pitched a couple of games here and there, but they did try to do something. But in general, this team did not improve themselves last offseason to be better than the team that beat them in the playoffs last year.
No, they didn't. It's just horrible roster construction. I mean, you trade a guy that you financially controlled in Urshela for Josh Donaldson. And what has Donaldson done? He's done nothing.
That Urshela deal, I don't understand. I liked him as a player. He seemed like a good clubhouse kind of a guy. And he's injured this year. He's out in Anaheim there with the Angels, Anaheim or California, whatever you want to call him. They change it so often. But Urshela was a good guy around that clubhouse, I thought. I mean, obviously I'm not in there, but I thought he was a kind of a glue kind of a guy. And losing a guy like that and adding a Donaldson who's out now, that hurts your team a lot. And I don't understand that. The Yankees currently sit in last place as long as they've ever since the deepest end of the season since 1992, I think it was, or 1990. Milli Vanilli was up in the charts way back then. And it's crazy to think that it's been that long since this team's been in last place at this point of the season. I don't expect them to get out. Like they might not end up in last place. They're 11 games out. The division is obviously out of hand. They're not going to get that. The wild card game is the wild card spot's 4 out right now. Do you have much hope of them actually getting into a wild card spot?
No, I'd rather them not at this point. What I'd rather them do is shut Judge down for the rest of the year.
Good point.
I mean, because you have 9 years and 360 plus invested in this guy. And with that toe injury, just go get the surgery, shut him down, shut down Rodon the rest of the year, you know, shut down Rizzo, just bring the younger kids up, showcase them, get rid of Cashman, just clean house. Hal's got to find his balls somewhere and take control of this thing and actually construct a championship caliber team. Because the only bright, positive outlook on this season is Garrett Cole. He's the only one.
Well, that's the thing with Cole, though, is that, like, I think he's got an opt-out either at the end of this year or next year. I can't remember what it is. When's he going to say? Because he's going to say, like, listen, I've only got X amount of years left. Yeah, I'm getting paid $35 million a year, but you still, like when guys get to that level of baseball and that level of athletics, no matter what sport it is, they want to win something. They want to have something in their legacy to get themselves in that Hall of Fame. Like, more money than they'll ever know what to spend. And will Cole, at one point, will he say, look around the clubhouse and go, what the fuck am I doing here?
If I'm Garrett Cole, that's what I'm doing. And I believe his opt-out is next year. So regardless, if I'm Cole, if something doesn't change, I'm opting out. And who could blame him? Me as a diehard Yankee fan, I wouldn't blame him if he said, fuck this shit, I'm out. There's no team leadership here. And that's what this dugout and this locker room is missing. Is you're missing that CC Sabathia type leadership, that Brett Gardner guy that's going to hold people accountable. That's what they lost, and you could see it. The real knowledgeable Yankee fan, like you and me, if no other Yankee fans noticed it, you're not watching what we're watching them, because that's what they're missing. They're missing that leadership guy. It's not Judge. It's not.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to be the guy. Like, yeah, just imagine how bad this team would be without Judge on it. If they would have lost on the Judge sweepstakes last winter when they almost did the arson Judge situation in San Francisco, if that would have been the deal that shook it, think how bad this team would be without Judge. Yeah, they would have found a spot here and there and had that 30 million, 40 million, whatever it is that they're spending on him. But this team would have been even worse than they are now, obviously, without him, because when he was out for the injury that he got on the toe back in LA, I think it was in June, they were awful, and they've been awful ever since. He hasn't really done it. At least he hit a home run last night, and he does enough. And it's weird how, like, baseball is such a individualistic but a team game, like how one guy can make that much of a difference. And it's just a badly constructed roster. It's awful.
And you can't just rely on Judge. And both you and me have been on record in saying that you got to rely on the other 8 guys around you. And yeah, when Judge is out, this is a completely different team. They can't hit, they can't score, they can't do anything. And you expect Stanton to step up, and Stanton can't do any of that. I mean, he can't even run from second to home without doing a little 2-step trying to avoid a tag. I don't get what this team's even doing.
I think that was last Saturday. I think, Jimmy, you're talking about there. And I was busy doing other things. I was down in the great state of Montana umpiring baseball, so I didn't see it live. But I saw the highlights. I almost threw my beer through the television watching that guy. I was like, I could not believe what I was watching, seeing the lack of effort that man has on a nightly basis. The Tin Man, I call him, the way he moves around, always hurt. He doesn't seem like I obviously I don't know what goes through the guy's head and how he operates, but the guy just doesn't seem to have that competitive spirit in his body, and the guy doesn't seem to have that next level to him. He's hitting 208 this year, and I don't care. Like, I don't give a shit, all these metrics and analytical guys and on and on and on. If you don't get on base, you won't win baseball games. They got 4 or 5 guys that are hitting 220 or less. You aren't going to win baseball games. You're just not. And putting Sean Casey in, the podcast host, as your fucking hitting coach all of a sudden 3 weeks ago, that obviously wasn't the solution, because this team just doesn't score runs and they can't hit. It's an organizational flaw somewhere in there that these guys are taught in the minor leagues or wherever they get there. They don't hit baseballs. And you hate to go back 20, 30, well, it's almost 30 years now, when the Yankees were winning World Series, man. We're getting old, Jim. But one of those things when, Paul O'Neill was hitting 330, right? Yeah. Derek Jeter was hitting 300. You had guys up and down the lineup. Yeah, they're Hall of Fame kind of guys, but baseball hasn't changed that much. I don't understand why there's this get away from batting average and getting on base. I don't get it.
I don't either. And to Yankee fans that thought bringing Sean Casey in was going to solve every problem this team's got, you couldn't be more wrong, because that's not the only issue. The hitting coach wasn't the only problem, and people are celebrating it like as if we just landed like the biggest free agent in baseball, like as if we all of a sudden struck a deal to get Ohtani before he became a free agent, And those who think Otani's coming to New York, he's not. No, he's staying on the West Coast. It's if he wanted to come to the East Coast, he would have when he was posted. He's never coming here. So stop with that.
He's not.
Stop with it. He's going to go to the Dodgers, and he's probably going to be the first $1 billion baseball player.
100%.
The Dodgers will overpay by millions, and with Otani, they're going to do it by a lot of millions. That's going to become billions. It's going to happen.
It's going to be insane when that comes through this winter. It'll be day one of this winter. That deal might already be done. This Yankee team, it's frustrating to watch, and it's frustrating to behold. Like you talked earlier on about Anthony Rizzo having him shut down. How it got to the point, and it seems to be a thing that, like with this Yankee team for quite a few years, their training staff, they find a way to mumble and fumble and bumble over themselves. Like the judge thing, they didn't know what was wrong, and then you had the doctors. I don't know who their doctors are. Some guy next to the Yankee Tavern out there in the Bronx. I don't know what's going on there. But then Rizzo, he played for about 4 to 5 weeks and was hitting 140, and they're like, well, what the hell's wrong with this guy? Turns out he was hurt, and he's probably shut down for the year now with the concussion and concussion-like symptoms and everything else. Like how inept is this team top to bottom? Yeah, that they get this wrong year after year. Cortez is out again, and then they got Rodon's out, and I don't know what the heck's going on with Frankie Montas. He hasn't pitched a game in Yankee pinstripes, I don't think, since they got him from Oakland last year, which we were both happy about. But this guy hasn't done a thing. Like, is this an organization right now that is just so inept, and they're living on just Yankee fumes of yesteryear?
More than likely. I don't get how you don't realize, and like with the Rizzo situation, how they knew the exact date that all this happened was with the collision with Tatis at first base.
San Diego, yeah.
You knew then this guy wasn't right since then. The fan base is saying it. But how does a room of doctors with medical degrees, they don't know? How do they not know? I wouldn't have played him. I would have shut him down then and there.
He didn't forget how to hit.
Yeah, the guy's telling you, listen, I go to bed and I wake up like I drank 45 beers. And the medical staff's just sitting there like, oh, yeah, you'll be all right. Don't worry about it. Just go out there and play.
It doesn't make any sense how they get it wrong year after year, and their pitching staff is like you go through it. Rodon is hurt. Frankie Montas hurt. Nestor Cortez is hurt. Luis Severino better be hurt with that 8+ ERA in his last 20 starts, whatever it's been. He's been awful. Like, and then the other night when they didn't start him, they didn't want him coming in to the to start the game. That's where he has problems. Every inning he starts, that's the beginning of his game. Like maybe the guy just doesn't have it anymore. Like maybe it's just gone. They used him up, and that's it. And who knows what's going on with Severino? But that's been mishandled inappropriately. And when you have a team that isn't winning and is having trouble scoring runs, why they would pull Hamilton after 11 pitches in the first and then start him again last night? Why didn't they let him go in Chicago the other night? I don't understand the logic there. I don't want to blame Boone on this, because I don't think Boone has that much of a thought process in his head to say, well, if we put this guy here and that guy here. It's coming from the nerds, and it's coming from the guys who write up his game notes, I think, because it was a bad look, I think, on Wednesday night.
Who knows? Maybe John Boy Media is telling them who to start and who to pitch and who to whatever. Who knows?
The most punchable face in sports podcast, John Boy. Yeah.
I for one, the ineptness really starts. It starts at Howe, and it just works its way down. I think Cashman is just too comfortable in his role, where he can just do as he pleases, and there's no repercussions for it. And I think Howe's got to realize at some point, listen, thanks for all you done, Cashman, but you can't keep living off the past history of the Yankees when you're trying to create a new one with new faces and new names. So you're gone. Give Derek Jeter the shot at being a GM. I don't know. I mean, it can't get worse at this point.
You know, I didn't think that when Jeter was still he resigned for whatever, he gave up his ownership rights or whatever stake he had with the Miami Marlins. I think there's no way he's going to be any part of the Yankees management. But now that Andy Pettit's in there and as a part-time pitching instructor, I maybe Jeter isn't that far behind, and you don't want to live in the past, but like a new voice might not be the worst thing for this team. Like you said, like you listen to I listen to Michael Kay show a lot, 98.7 ESPN in New York there, and Kay, every time that someone says fire Cashman, he's no good, blah, 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 Kay's immediate response is he'll have a job tomorrow somewhere else in baseball. Well, give it a shot. Maybe it's just time to go. Maybe you are brilliant, Cashman. Maybe you are the guy who's got it going on. Maybe you're a fantastic manager. I haven't seen it, but in the last 10 years. But the thing is, with Cashman, maybe it is time to say see you later and go somewhere else, because right now, what you've constructed, what you're doing, what's coming up in the minor leagues, who knows? Like maybe this next 6 weeks, whatever's left, there's 40 games left this season. Maybe what they do is they say, okay, Cashman, here's your tryout too. Here's what your resume is built on, because we aren't doing fuck all this year. Bring up that Dominguez or whoever else from the minors and say, here it is. What do you got? What do we got?
I mean, got nothing to lose at this point. You might as well bring up Everson Pereira, bring up Esteval, bring them all up. Bring Austin Wells up, whether they're ready or not. Let's showcase what we've gotten rid of to bring in these kids into the farm system or drafted, and let's see what they got, because eventually at some point they're going to have to come up here and they're going to have to produce. So let's just get a small sample size in these last 30 to 40 games, and let's see what they got. And maybe if they can produce a winning record and maybe get out of last place, they may just barely save Cashman's job to where he gets another year, even though he's already got an extension, where, okay, we're not going to get rid of you. Let's see what you do now with these kids starting next year with Judge, with Cole. Get rid of Severino. Let Donaldson walk. Get aggressive in free agency. Stop with this fake luxury tax nonsense. Open the friggin' checkbook. Open it. Steve Cohen does it.
Jim, I think you have to open up the checkbook at this point, because because otherwise, what are you doing? What are you doing signing Judge to $40 million plus? What are you doing signing Cole to $35 million plus? What are you doing having Stanton at $25 million plus or $30 million, whatever? I mean, the Marlins are still on the book for a little bit of his salary, but like, what are you doing if you have three guys at just under $100 million? You don't have any choice but to go for it, and to fill the rest of your roster with guys who forgotten how to play baseball. Like it's odd to see LeMahieu's got to be hurt as well, because there's no way. Yeah, I can see his power numbers going down, but to forget how to hit the baseball and to not be hitting for average like he usually has. So I think there's got to be something wrong with him. And like we said, with the medical staff, you just don't know. But like, what is Cashman and the Steinbrenners doing with this payroll that's inflated and getting nothing from it? But not, like I said, you have these three guys that are making how much money? You don't have any choice but to then add on whatever he's making a year. You don't have a choice, because you're spending $120 million on four guys, so you have to go for it the rest of the way. You don't have a choice.
No, you absolutely don't. And I understand that Hal wants to be more financially fiscal as opposed to what his father was. That's all well and good, but you keep blowing smoke up our ass year in and year out. We built a championship caliber team. Again, this is not a championship caliber team. Think of all the guys they passed up on. You passed up on Bryce Harper. Look what he's doing in Philly. And for Bryce Harper to come out and say the Yankees passed up on me should show you the ineptness of Brian Cashman alone. I mean, would it have been a long deal, a lot of money? But look what Harper's doing in Philly that he could have been doing in New York.
Yep.
And then, okay, nobody likes Manny Machado, but I'd rather have Manny Machado at third base for the New York Yankees than have Josh Donaldson or a revolving door of third baseman. We don't even have a legitimate left fielder. You're trotting IKF out there to play like every friggin' position. He's like the Wish.com version of Benny the Jet Rodriguez from friggin' Sandlot. I mean, and you can't even knock the guy because he's willing to do it. So all the IKF bashing we may have kind of done at the beginning of the year, I kind of feel a little bad for it now, because the guy's willing to go out there and do what he's got to do to keep playing.
Yeah, he's kind of shoving that up our ass, Jim, because we weren't too nice with him a few months back. But
Nope.
that's how bad it actually is when we're stroking off IKF right now about how good he's been playing, and he's been a great utility guy all over the place. He's been there, like, arguably one of their best players lately. And when IKF is your best guy, and you're spending upwards of $290 million for the rest of for your baseball team, and kind of left as your best guy, you're in big trouble. And like I said, well, I apologize to IKF, and I mean we were wrong, but because he wasn't playing that well. But now, we're like I said, we're stroking this guy off because he's their best player, and that's how that is the state of the New York Yankees right now.
Yeah, and that's pathetic when IKF is the talk of the Yankees when it should be Judge, Stanton, it should be Cole, it should be Gleyber Torres, it should be DJ LeMahieu, it should be all these guys, but it's not. We're talking about how good IKF has been.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, like how it's all turned out. Like I expected, like I thought that Cortez was going to have an off year compared to last year. I thought that was kind of an epiphany a little bit, that he was going to be like having the great year like he did last year, and trying to replicate that, because he's a very good pitcher. I don't think he's a great pitcher. He's not like on Cole status by any means, but the rest of this everything, like you go down the lineup, and then they didn't do. What bothers me a lot is that out of one side of their mouth, they're saying it's a championship caliber team. You look in the standings at the trade deadline, and you're like, well, they can't be. Yes, they have injuries, but every team gets injuries. Every team gets hurt, no matter what. And the only thing they did was went and got Kenyon Middleton, of all people. Kenyon fucking Middleton. Who is this guy? So out of one side of your mouth, you're saying we're a championship team. You're looking on the in the standings in the paper, or if people even read papers anymore. But it's like, and they're in last place. And how they said we're a championship team, but you know what? We're only going to add Kenyon Middleton, but we're in last place. Like, do they think that that Yankee fans are that stupid? Because I think we're actually, we're a finicky bunch, and we can be a bit loud sometimes. But they can't think that Yankee fan, I like to think, is in general pretty smart, and we know what's going on a daily basis. For them to not make a move at the deadline of any substance at all is odd to me. To be a prospect hugger like they did it with Frazier, and look what happened to him. Gone.
Yeah.
And so now they have a bunch of prospects that they're talking about. They talk about having the top 7 guys in the top 100 prospects, whatever it is. But they're just prospects. Like, they're just another player that probably isn't going to work out. But give them a shot to do something. Then, if you're not going to make any deals at the deadline, if you're going to hang on to these prospects, get them out there and play, like you said.
Exactly. That's what Cashman should have been at the deadline. If all you're going to bring in is 2 middle of the road relievers, that one you then sent down to the minors, okay, and you trade for Middleton, big whoopity friggin' do. Right? That's the biggest move the Yankees are going to make. Okay, if you were going to do that, then you were better off calling up the kids then and there, and then I would have honestly traded off LeMahieu and got farm pieces back. I would have seen what I could have got for Gleyber Torres. I'm sure Yankee fans won't be happy about me saying that, but at this point, you got to do something to rock the boat. People call for firing Cashman all year long. What's he going to do at this point? It's going to do nothing. Getting rid of Cashman in the middle of the year would do nothing. Just let the season play out the way it's going to be, where we're not in the playoffs. Everybody's shitting on the Yankees, but it's truthful, so we have to eat that. And then you fire Boone. Then you fire Cashman. Then you let certain guys walk, and then bring in a GM that's going to tell Hal, listen, give me the fucking checkbook, just sign the check, and let me worry about the dollar amounts. The Yankee empire as a whole makes money hand over fist. They have more than enough money and then some to go out and overpay for talent. They do. Don't tell me they don't, because they do.
The thing you got, like we talked about, like, I want to talk about this, like, last Monday night or Tuesday, whatever it was, when Boone had his little show, his annual show with an umpire, and on it goes. Like obviously I'm an umpire, but I thought that Las Diaz was having a bad game, and it's nice to see a coach like old times get in the umpire's face, and it's automatic ejection. See you later. And it was a funny, humorous thing, the way he imitated Las Diaz's strike 3 call, and on it goes. Is that just grandstanding at this point by Boone? Because what does it really do? Saying he's got to protect his players, got to go out there and do something. It was the 8th inning in a game you're going to fucking lose. Why not do that in the 4th? If this umpire was so bad, do that in the fourth. I don't understand. And then, like I said, it's clickbait, and everybody, Bald Vinny's probably got a T-shirt made up for it outside the stadium already. On and on it goes, right? But is it just grandstanding by Boone at this point? Because what does it really do? What does it actually do?
It does nothing other than it's a smoke and mirror show to distract the casual fan from the fact that this team fucking sucks. And I commend Aaron Boone for going out there, sticking up for his guys when the umpires make bad calls. But at some point, when does all this, like, as some people like to call it, these unnecessary actions of Boone, where he's imitating Laz Diaz and drawing a line in the dirt where the strike zone is and where
My
it's
guys
not.
are savages and whatever it was a couple of years back. And
When does that just get too old to the point where even the casual fan goes, yeah, I really don't want to see this anymore? And when are the Yankees going to realize that this isn't how a manager should act? I mean, we've seen legendary managers do it. Lou Piniella and, Tony La Russa, Bobby Cox in Atlanta. We've seen it. It was great then, but it ain't so great now. And maybe because it's Aaron Boone doing it. I don't know. But it's fun for John Boy Media to make their stupid little shirts and then tell Aaron Boone about it on their Tuesday or Wednesday show when they're afraid to ask him the questions that a real Yankee fan would ask. Like, why does this team suck? Why can't you manage? Who's really managing the Yankees, you or the nerds in the basement? Who?
yeah, like the thing about, I'm glad you brought that up a little bit. Like, is it like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, Lou Piniella and Billy, we go even go further back with Billy Martin?
Yeah.
And like it was interesting back then because athletes were built differently back then, and sometimes some motivation was just it happened because a lot of these guys back then, they were just happy to be there in the big leagues. They were happy to be. They weren't making much money back then, but now these guys make so much money. Even a bench guy's making how much money when it comes down to it. So having this fake motivation, probably a lot of these players, because they grow up privileged, they're told how great they are from a very young age nowadays. They probably look at the side of their face and go, yeah, right on, man, right on. They don't like you. A few weeks back, I think you commented on it on Twitter there that the way the Yankees were losing, Rizzo was on the bench laughing, and you had Stanton laughing, and on and on. Like, I don't think these players get motivated by wins and losses that much anymore. Where it's a lot more they're worried about the almighty dollar and their image per se.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't have seen that if Brett Gardner was on this team. He would have been like, sit your fucking ass down. We're freaking getting destroyed out there by teams we should be beating. And yeah, no, Volpe, you're not going to stand up there chewing gum, laughing, looking at the iPad with Rizzo and Judge, looking at whatever new friggin' meme is out there all of a sudden. Yeah. No, use the iPad for what it's for. Watch friggin' game film while the game's going on and see how you could do something to maybe get a hit, score a run, spark something other than sitting there laughing and having a fucking circle jerk in the dugout, because it's ridiculous. And that's where this team chemistry and the leadership is not there. And Aaron Judge should be the guy. If you're the captain of this team, you're the captain. You should be saying something. Your voice should be the loudest in that dugout, louder than Boone, louder than Howe, louder than Cashman. Aaron Judge should sit there and say, I decide to stay here to preserve my legacy. I could have went to San Francisco and been known as Arson Judge and made $400+ million for over a decade, but I stayed here because I believe in this team, and you're making me look like an asshole.
The thing about that, and I totally agree with you. Like, when the players, like, and it's in all sports, no matter what, but baseball is one of those things, and hockey's the same way, and I'm sure football's the same way. But basketball, the inmates run the asylum no matter what. Yeah. But with baseball, for sure, the players, the inmates run the asylum, and they know, you know what, I'm not getting traded. I'm staying here. I'm here. I got a contract that says I'm getting paid this. That motherfucker over there, he's probably the one that's going. So the manager always loses. You're not going to get rid of 25 guys. You're going to get rid of a manager. So that's why I say this grandstanding by Boone, it doesn't mean a damn thing to these guys. Nothing. Like you said, it's fun. It's fun for us to watch and have a chuckle for Boone's antics when it gets down. But then, it's over. It's over. Like, this team hasn't beat anybody, hasn't won a series over anybody above 500 for quite some time. Like, the latest one that they beat was the lowly Kansas City Royals and the Oakland A's. Like, this team has not beat anybody of any substance for a long, long time. They might get something done this weekend with the Miami Marlins. They won last night, but this team, it's just not good enough top to bottom throughout the entire organization. It's a bad look for the Yankees right now. And at what point do because going to a Yankee game is great, but if you look at the Yankee fan base, a lot of people who go to the games. Now, I'm not talking people who sit and watch the 162 from at home or listen on the radio to John and Susan, but if you go to a Yankee game, there is a good percentage of people who are at those games. It's a big frat party. They don't give a shit who's winning these baseball games. Like, you got a bunch of girls taking selfies in the stands and posting on their Instagram or TikTok. Like, it's not a fan base at the game itself that is interested in the game. And I think that is something that once those people get kind of tired of it, or the people who go to the games, like, one of those two factions isn't going to go anymore. And once Cashman and the Steinbrenners realize that our fan base that goes to games isn't actually that strong. It really isn't. Like, people are more interested in going to Billy's or Stan's after the game and not caring that team lost. And that's just factual. Like, it's one of those things that, like, they're losing they're not going to lose a generation of fans, but they're losing a fan base that it's going to come to bite them sooner rather than later, I think.
Well, that's the thing. When you built the new Yankee Stadium, you outpriced the casual, normal fan who used to go to the old Yankee Stadium, where in the big moment, when I used to go to the old Yankee Stadium, I was afraid that place was going to cave in because everybody getting all excited. This new Yankee Stadium, lately, it's like, I hate to say it, it's kind of like going to a funeral. It's just grim, quiet. It's not as exciting as it once was. And if that's not a sign to Cashman and Steinbrenner that they need to fix this, then I don't know what is, because at the end of the day, all they worry about is how much money we, the fan, are spending once we go through those gates. $25 for a friggin' margarita in a cup this big, or getting a daiquiri this big for like 30-something bucks, buying a hat for $70 when you could have went on Fanatics and used a promo code and saved 20%. I mean, when do they wake up and realize that all this is a huge problem that they themselves created? Cashman created it, and Steinbrenner created it. Now they got to fix it.
And that's the thing, is if you don't fix it now, like, where are they going to be this time next year? We're sitting here having the same fucking conversation again. We will be, because right now this team is in last. They're in last place in the East. Baltimore isn't going to get worse in the offseason. They're going to get better. They might add a couple of bucks if their owner, whatever might happen there. That's a whole other story for another day. But you have Tampa, who's been consistently good for a long time. They aren't going anywhere. You have Tampa Bay. They said Tampa. They have Toronto, who's going to get better. They have money. They're not afraid to spend money. They got that going on there in Toronto. So you have three teams just in your division who are already ahead of you. Then you don't even talk about, we haven't talked about Houston. We haven't talked about the Texas Rangers yet. So there's 5 teams right there that are better than you next year already. Next year. So where is this team going this year to look at next year? Like, this team is in big trouble in the very near future to being irrelevant on the baseball field. Irrelevant. Nobody's scared of the Bronx Bombers. Nobody's scared of the baby Bombers of 2017 when they were coming up. That's a long, long time ago. A long time ago. They blew the opportunity to do something with those guys because Gary Sanchez was butthurt with Girardi, and then they blew an opportunity in 2019 with the cheating Astros, blah, 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 the Astros. And then now this is what they are. They're spending $130 million, $120 million on 4 guys, and they're an irrelevant baseball team. They're irrelevant on the field. Nobody is afraid to play the New York Yankees. Nobody. They're hitting. They're the second worst batting average in Major League Baseball with a $290 million payroll. What's the problem? What's the problem?
The problem, again, it's top to bottom. It's the roster construction. You passed up on guys to get other guys that you maybe shouldn't have gotten. Listen. Like, there was a thing I seen out there where they were talking about, like, and Cashman compares Urshela to Donaldson. He's like, yeah, Urshela's a good player, but he's no Josh Donaldson. Yeah, you're right. Urshela's better.
Yeah.
There's no comparison. Urshela is not only better, he's younger, You control them
And
financially for
cheaper.
another 2 years, where you're paying Donaldson, this guy who's not that much older than me, and you're paying him $25 million. To what? To do what? Smile when he strikes out? Laugh when he pops out? Get the fuck
It's
out of
insane
here.
that they would use that comparison when they did with Donaldson. Yeah, he won an MVP, and you wanted a former MVP on your team, but that
Yeah,
MVP came in 2015.
yeah.
That's a long time ago. A lot can happen in 8 years. Now that he's hurt, now he probably won't play again this year, and on it goes. To make that deal and lose a guy like Urshela hurts, and to not replace these guys with actual major leaguers and actual guys that can play the game, because you have Oswaldo Cabrera. God love him. Good smile. Seems like a nice kid. Hitting 202. You have Volpe. He's a young guy. Hit a home run last night, the third or fourth of the year, whatever it might be. He's hitting 208. Yeah, or 212. And Bowers 230. Like, all these guys aren't doing anything, and
Huh.
is this the future of this team? Because if there are if they don't increase, because of the hole they dug themselves with the payroll they have now, they don't have money under this phantom tax to do anything next year. They don't.
No, that they don't, and it's sad because, like, you look at a kid like Volpe, and I defend him because he's still acclimating to the league, and yeah, he's got 15 home runs this year, so he's got more than the average shortstop
Yeah.
by like one or two. But I mean, he'll progress and he'll get better, but it's these other guys that you have to look at and say, are you going to be the guy that helps us get back to what we were or could be, as opposed to, are you hurting us? And right now, the Donaldsons of the world are hurting us. The Severinos of the world are hurting us. The medical staff is hurting us because they can't diagnose a back spasm from a common friggin' cold. They can't do nothing. It's really sad, and how unfortunately will never be his dad. And this is why I've always said, when George died, the evil empire died. It died. I don't know what this empire is, what it could be, because if Cole decides not to opt out and he stays here, and I would be shocked if he does it, and you don't win a World Series, at least 3 with Judge and Garrett Cole on your team, this will be known as the biggest failure, not just in baseball, but of all sports. This will be labeled the biggest failure ever, and rightfully so. So, Hal, you got to wake up, and you got to take the reins of this thing and say, listen, this is not a championship caliber team. He questions why the fan base is so confused, or angry. Why are we angry? Do you watch the fucking product? Do you? Does Hal watch the product? He exactly. He must not. I don't even think Cashman's watching the product, because these two are fucking just talking out of their ass all year.
You just wonder where this team's going to go. Like, something as simple next year. Now that you had Verlander, and then you had him leave the Mets. Cole could end up as a New York Met after next season very easily. Cohen's got the money to do it. He's got the money to do it. He said, we're not going to be competitive in 2024, but 2025, we're looking to do something. We took a swing and a miss with Scherzer and with Verlander, and it blew up in their face. And this guy's not afraid to spend money. Cole could just go across the city and play for the Mets in 2 years very easily, if he sees that this team isn't doing anything. And I don't see them doing anything. Like, they're not a championship team. Like, it's not even close. Like, and you wonder, and like, we're going a little long here, but it doesn't much matter. Like, you look right across the country there at the LA Dodgers, who year in, year out, they spend money. Yeah, they only have the one World Series in the COVID year of 2020 to show for it, but every year they spend money. They pack the building. They get $4 million plus rolling into Dodger Stadium. They're the West Coast brand. They are everything to LA, and you wonder why. Like, they have a little, I don't know, more money, but the same amount of money, basically. Let's just call it that, because when you have billions of dollars in the bank, what's one compared to two when it comes down to it? But you wonder how the Yankees don't look across the country and go, why aren't we doing that same thing? Like, why don't we have that same fan base fill in the place? Why don't we have that championship aspirations every year? Why aren't we just rolling into the playoffs no matter what? They're rolling the playoffs because they are. Like every
Yeah.
year, they roll into the playoffs, and it's like, okay, they might not win every year, but giving themselves a chance. And the thing with the Yankees, they're going to say, yeah, we're in the playoffs every year, but are they really? Like
No.
really, like they are. Like you win a wild card here and there, but they don't have playoff aspirations. And the worst thing you can be at any point in your life is mediocre because you're just close to the bottom as you are the top, and it takes a little bit of just takes one bad week, and all of a sudden you're under 500. Then there goes your season. And this franchise has been closer to mediocre than great for a number of years now.
Yeah, and I think Hal and Brian Cashman have accepted that. I mean, you look at the Dodgers; I consider them the West Coast Yankees
100%.
because that's what the Dodgers are doing now, what the Yankees used to do. So the Dodger ownership embraced that George Steinbrenner type style where it's okay, we'll overpay for this guy. Yeah, you know what? We want to win now. We're trading for this guy. Don't care what we give up. Don't care if we deplete the farm. Don't care if I got to pay Mookie Betts an extra $20 million over the course of however long his deal is. We're getting this guy, and then we're keeping him. Don't care if we overpay Clayton Kershaw, even though he's injury prone as of late. Like the Dodgers are in it to win it every year. How is Cashman and Hal not seeing this and going, shit, we got to get back to that?
Listen
to it's right there in front of you.
I was listening to, I can't remember, it doesn't matter which show. I think it could have been just Michael Kay show. And they said the Yankee fans are saying that that the Yankees don't care if they win. Look how much money they spend year in, year out. They must care to be spending that kind of money. Maybe it's your scouting staff then. Maybe it's your scouting staff. Yes, you're spending a lot of money, and yet, yes, you're giving you pretend you're giving yourself a chance to win, but maybe it's just your scouting staff that's not getting it done properly. Maybe it is your fucking your bench coaches and your hitting coaches and everything else that your analytics guys, your nerds, or whatever it might be. But something's not right if you're spending that much money and the other teams aren't. Like the Baltimore Orioles aren't, and they're never going to, and they're 11 games up. And $220 million less in payroll, and they're 11 games up on you. It's time to look at yourself in the mirror and go, what are we doing wrong? What are we doing here?
I mean, look at Tampa's scouting department.
Year out.
How many guys have they traded off when they've had big years, got the pieces that they wanted because they scouted correctly, so they knew what they could get if they traded, say Austin Meadows or whoever else they've traded off to get guys like freaking Randy, or I can't even pronounce his last name.
Rosarina.
To bring in a guy like him, or to bring in all these other guys they brought in, and still with $200 million less than what the Yankees spend. Same thing with the Orioles, and how these two are 1-2 in the AL East. I don't get it.
Like Steinbrenner must think, okay, what the hell's going on here? Those guys spend nothing. I spend $280 plus every year, plus whatever I got to spend on the tax threshold, blah, 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 $300 million, whatever it's going to be every year. And we don't do a fucking thing. We don't even come remotely close to being that championship caliber team. Yeah, you make the ALCS, but they got swept aside by the Astros. Like, it must drive him crazy. Like, what kind of spell does Cashman have pictures of fucking Steinbrenner blowing a goat or something? Because he has to hold something over their heads to say, hey, let's spend $280 every year and not be close and actually regress year in, year out. Because this team's regressed right now. They're not close.
Without a doubt, they've definitely regressed. And yeah, Cashman's got to have something on Hal to be here this long. He's got to have something. I don't know. Maybe it's pictures of him doing blow on his desk. Who the fuck knows? But the fact that the Yankees were supposed to have this best rotation where you were supposed to have a healthy Frankie Montas, a healthy Severino, Cortez, Cole, and then you're supposed to have this dominant lineup, and we're discussing the fact that Baltimore is better than us, the fact that Tampa is better than us, the fact that Toronto is better than us, the fact that the fucking Boston Red Sox are better than us.
Who was supposed to be mailing it in this year. They said we're not going to be good this year. They flat out said it. And they're still ahead of the Yankees.
I'd rather Cashman and Hal say, listen, we're not a championship team. Accept it for what it is. And maybe we wouldn't bash them so much or be as vocal as we are, it's like, okay, well, if they're saying it, then I'll accept it this year. But next year, I'm not going to accept it because this time next year, or even at spring training, we already know what Cashman and Hal are going to say. Yeah, we constructed a championship caliber team. Yes, we've let the fan base down. And then after the All-Star break, they'll trade for some other BS fucking reliever again because they'll be in the same spot again if they don't do something at the end of this year. And this offseason will prove what 2024 is going to be for the New York Yankees. It's going to prove it.
In 2016, when they brought those guys up, when Judge first came up and they traded Chapman, they made some other deals in 2016, you were like, okay, this team isn't very good. We accepted it. In 2017, all those guys, they overproduced, and they was one of my favorite Yankee teams in recent memory, and they gave it a shot. I would rather, like you said, I would rather them be honest, give these guys a shot and say, you know what, we're not that good. Give these guys a shot. Let's see what we got. Because the guys they have now stink. They actually stink. Like you don't know what you got. Like why they kept Harrison Bader? I don't know because he's not going to re-sign here. Like I don't understand why they didn't just insert player here, insert player there. To if they think that they're a playoff team right now, then they're a lot dumber than you and I sitting here on a Saturday afternoon. Because I think deep down inside, Yankee fans know right now that they are not making the playoffs. And for them to sit on their hands and make no deals and say there was nothing out there that would improve our team that much. Oh fuck! Then what are you doing?
There were things that there were guys that they could have brought in to improve the team, but the Yankees were asking for so much in return to give up less, and that's just not what's going to happen. You want to improve, you're going to have to give up a guy you don't want to really give up on, but you got to do it if you want to improve the team now because it's about winning now. It's not about winning in a decade from now, especially with us, the Yankees fans. We've been spoiled with championship after championship after championship. So that's what we're accustomed to. We're accustomed to winning, always being in the playoffs. And the fact that I think it was last Sunday's broadcast on Amazon with Jeff Nelson and Michael Kay, they're talking about if the Yankees get into the wild card, they'll play one of the AL Central teams, whether it's the Twins or it's the friggin' Guardians or whatever you want to call them, the Indians. I really don't give a shit. By the way, thanks to Jose Ramirez for knocking out that prick Tim Anderson. I loved every minute of that one.
Yeah, that was good.
But the fact that Jeff Nelson said, well, if the Yankees could get that wild card and play one of those teams, yeah, they'll make it to the next round. Do they drug test before they do these shows? Because that there should have warranted a suspension. Not like Kevin Brown for speaking, the facts that he was speaking before the Orioles-Ray game. Jeff Nelson for saying that, statistical facts put on the screen, you read them, you get suspended.
I can't believe that because it has to go through the producer, it has to go through the script guy, it has to go through on and on and on it goes. He just read the shit. He may have wrote it, and he had an editor, so there was 5 or 6 people who were part of that, and he's the one that gets for telling the truth. It was nothing derogatory.
No. I had to watch that video 4 or 5 times to see maybe did he slip and say something that should have been said. And all it was, yeah, we're not that good against the Rays. And all of a sudden, gets suspended for it. And then the backlash for it, I loved it. Everybody and their mother was taking a shot at it. During the White Sox Yankee game, one of the White Sox broadcasters was saying something. And he goes, I hope the Orioles management don't suspend me.
Yeah, no, it's crazy the way that turned out. And we'll get going here, Jim. But this Yankee team, if they don't do something like what they're to me, they're not making the playoffs. And for Jeff Nelson to say if they're getting into the wild card spot, I mean it's they got to jump a few teams and then try to get in there. I personally don't think they will. And by this time next week, we'll probably be saying it's going to be worse before it gets better. If they don't make the playoffs, and if they have and they don't bring any of the younger guys up, is it basically what do you think that what do you think they should do, and what do you think they're going to do?
Well, if they don't bring any of the younger kids up to showcase them, Cashman's got to go. Even though Hal's saying that's not on the table, I don't know how that's not on the table for discussion at this point. That's been on my table for discussion for the past friggin' 8-9 years. Okay, you gotta realistically, even though it won't happen, it should happen. Boone needs to go. Cashman needs to go. The whole coaching staff needs to go. Implode the whole friggin' thing. Don't re-sign Harrison Bader. Yeah, he's good for a game here or there, but he's
Always
injured.
hurt.
But he always gets hurt. I mean, he freaking gets out of the shower, stubs his toe. It's like Johnny Damon 2.0. Not Johnny Damon. The other guy,
Jacoby Ellsbury.
Ellsbury 2.0.
Holy fuck, was that a wreck? Ellsbury. Is he still getting paid or is he done yet?
Probably. Who knows? Either the Yankees are paying him or Affleck's paying him. I don't know. Somebody's paying him. But if you're gonna think, if you're Hal and Brian Cashman, regardless how the season ends, if you think that this is still a championship caliber team in 2024, it's not going to be. And if I'm Hal and Brian Cashman, I just immediately just put myself into an insane asylum for those thoughts, because it's not. So unfortunately, we have to wait to see what they're going to do in the offseason. Now, if they go out and spend like drunken sailors, hey, I'm all for it at this point. At this point, you got to do what you got to do.
The only thing, like, if they fire Boone, which I don't think will happen, because it doesn't matter. You'll just get another Boone 2.0 in there. It doesn't much matter because Cashman's calling the shots and they have the analytics guys. If they don't fire Cashman, Boone sticks around.
Yeah,
in my opinion. But if they don't have a team that can do it with the way it is constructed now, and the thing is that because like I said, the money that they're already committed to for next year and the year after that, their hands are pretty much tied with what you got. So I think what you see is what you're going to get for the next couple of years. And it's sad to say, like, will the younger guys that they have, will the Volpes, will the Cabreras play a little bit better? Will IKF get even a little bit better? And we'll be calling him the next Hall of Fame Yankee of going and saying really saying sorry to him. You just wonder where this team is going to go and whether the fan base is going to revolt a little bit, because it's not a good look for a team that spends that kind of money. And I don't want to say there's a laughing stock of baseball, but there's got to be a lot of owners and GMs. I could think of 28 others or 29 others thinking, oh, holy fuck, am I glad I'm not the Yankees or the Mets right now? Because you think about what a mess that team is in comparison to two New York teams that haven't done themselves any favors by spending like drunken sailors and getting nothing for it. Like we were talking about the Yankees are in comparison. The Mets are worse. Like the Mets, like they blew it. They completely blew it.
Yeah, you blew it by letting DeGrom go. I think was the smart option, because obviously we see he gets hurt. His third, fourth start of the year, he's out again, Tommy John surgery. But the fact that you committed over $100 million into two guys that are combined are almost 100 years old, and thought that you were going to win with just that, and now you have the New York sports media. Like on WFAN, they're saying that there's toxicity in the Met clubhouse, and that Pete Alonso is the circle of it.
Really? I
don't listen. By no means do I defend the Mets or anything, or whatever. But I don't think Pete Alonso is the problem in that Met locker room. I think it's the same problem that the Yankees have. You have a GM that really isn't doing what he went out and overpaid for guys you shouldn't have gotten, and a fan base got excited because you brought in a 38-year-old Scherzer, a 38-year-old Justin Verlander, and you thought that was going to improve your team, and it didn't. And we've seen that. And you could blame the World Baseball Classic and Edwin Diaz's injury to why you don't have the best closer, but what Billy Epler did, as opposed to Cashman, which was smart, and I'll give him credit for that, you cut the dead weight. You cut you cut Robertson. You traded him to Miami. You traded Scherzer. You got a prospect in return. Yeah, you sent money to pay off the contract for this year, but you also got out of them for the following year. And that's something Cashman could have did with Stanton if he had to. But Cashman just wasn't creative at the deadline, and Billy Epler was.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this all turns out for the Yankees. Like we both are in agreement that they probably aren't making the playoffs, and it's going to be the Yankees never rebuild. And I think it's time to find a way to. And I'm against rebuilding. I'm more of a regroup kind of a guy. But how you regroup with that core that you have is going to be pretty tough because of the money that they're committed to, and it's going to be interesting to see how it's all going to turn out. Does Cole opt out? Yes or no?
A lot factors into it. If they're in the same position they are this time next year, he's gone. And I will not fault him at all. In fact, I'll probably just do an episode where I praise him for doing it.
Yeah. No, it's like I said, like when they got Stanton, like a couple of years ago, I was talking about this. Then when we started the podcast thing, when they got Stanton, I was okay. He's okay, but the long term deal, and it's coming to fruition now. He's a major problem with this, the way this team is. He's a liability in the field. You never know when he's going to be hurt. He hits 200. He hits the odd home run with nobody on base, on and on. They got to try to find a way to get rid of him. I think that's priority number one for me.
Yeah. And with Stanton, I think it's a mental thing. I just don't think he has the thick skin to play in New York. I just don't think he does because, in Miami, it's a small market. So of course he looks great when he's smacking 500-foot home runs and looks great. But then he comes to New York and it's like, and then he sucks and he's always hurt. And it's like, well, where was that Stanton from Miami? That Stanton's long gone. I don't know what
he ain't coming back by any means. He is not coming back. No, he's a hurting. Anyways, I know. Jim will once the season's over, we'll sit down and we'll do this again. It was a lot of fun today. Thanks for taking time out of your day to have a chat with me, man.
Anytime, you know that.
What do you got going on there with the Fan of the Van podcast? You got as much going on there as I do now. What's going on? What's happening?
Well, I think you still got 30,000 more shows than me, but. In the next few weeks, there's a new one coming out with me and Average Joe Sports called Cigar and Sports. It's going to be a monthly show, which I'm looking forward to doing. Me and Garrett, obviously, we have the football one with Steel and Teal Talk, which is usually every Saturday, but we're recording this Monday. You know, things happen and schedules got to change sometimes. And, you know, it just is what it is. And then, of course, I do my daily 2, maybe 3 episodes a week, so.
Yeah, it's always fun listening to Jim early in the morning when I get out of bed, and I'm listening to Jim ranting and raving at 5 in the morning. And so it's always a good laugh for me. And he's very opinionated. It's great, Jim. You do a great job. Keep battling out there. I really enjoy listening to your show, and I really appreciate you coming on the Yankee Week in Review. And we'll have to do it again sometime. Maybe we'll do a 1420. We'll get Dave in here, and he'll talk about God knows whatever it is Dave talks about half the time. It's always a mystery to me before we even get going. So a lot of fun. Thank you very much. Who do you got winning the World Series?
Right now, I hate to say, probably I'm going to go. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go on a limb. I'm going to go crazy. Texas.
That's not a bad choice. Not a bad choice.
Right now, it's not. Now, it's not.
If they can get a couple of starts out of Scherzer, you just never know. Yeah, that's a very good pick. We'll have to maybe put a couple of bucks down on that anyways. 1420 week Yankee Week Review brought to you by SeatGeek.com. The SeatGeek app. Use promo code 1420pod at SeatGeek.com today to save yourself $20. Have a good day, folks. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. Monday. Fuck it. Peace out. You just listened to the 1420 Sports Bar Podcast. 4 beer with sports talk and a whole lot more. We are part of the Belly Up Media Network. Let's get into it.